Hello, friends of liberty. It's time for another free market video from the Center for Freedom and Prosperity. I'm Dan Mitchell of the Cato Institute, here today to talk about the debate between the flat tax and the national sales tax, which is sometimes known as the fair tax. Before we look at these two tax reform plans, let's remind ourselves why we hate the current tax system. First, the Internal Revenue Code has high tax rates, and those high rates discourage people from engaging in productive behavior. And the more you contribute to America's prosperity, the higher the rate. That's economically and morally wrong. Second, our tax code penalizes saving and investment. Between the capital gains tax, the corporate income tax, the personal income tax, and the death tax, it's possible for the government to tax the same dollar of income 4 times. This tax bias punishes people who set aside some of today's income to finance tomorrow's growth. Let's not allow the IRS to get more than one bite of the apple. Third, the current tax system is riddled with loopholes. Tens of thousands of pages of complex rules with myriad exemptions, deductions, preferences, and other special provisions. People with lawyers, lobbyists, and accountants can rig the system, but the rest of us have to bear the burden. And the politicians love this game, of course, since they can swap loopholes for campaign cash. And finally, let's not forget about the IRS. It's bigger than the CIA and FBI combined, and it probably has more power. If you murder someone, you're innocent until proven guilty. But if the IRS says you owe more money, the Constitution's presumption of innocence goes out the window. We clearly need to fix the tax code. But which tax reform plan is best? From an economic perspective, the flat tax and sales tax are virtually identical. Both would junk the current system. Both would restore fairness by taxing at one low rate. Both would eliminate all forms of double taxation. And both would wipe out special interest loopholes. The only real difference between the two would be the collection point. The flat tax imposes one low tax rate on income when it is earned, and the sales tax imposes one low tax rate on income when it is spent. I'll gladly take either one of these tax reform plans. Indeed, some of you may be familiar with the articles I've written on the flat tax. I've also been in about 30 countries around the world promoting the idea, and I hope I've played at least a tiny role in the global flat tax revolution. We're up to 24 flat tax jurisdictions, and I suspect more nations will soon jump on the flat tax bandwagon. But my work for the flat tax is not because I dislike the sales tax. I've defended the sales tax in speeches, in articles, in the press, and in congressional testimony. It just seems that the flat tax is more feasible, so that's where I concentrate most of my time. So let's return now to the challenge of how do we get tax reform in America? I'm intrigued by a proposal that could unify flat tax supporters and sales tax supporters. In the short run, we rally behind a flat tax. Once that simple and fair system is implemented, we then seek a constitutional amendment that would prohibit an income tax. If that amendment clears Congress, fans of tax reform could then unite behind a national sales tax, but only one designed to go into effect the day after the 38th state ratifies the anti-income tax amendment. This approach protects us from untrustworthy politicians. The big risk of a national sales tax has always been that the crowd in Washington may pull a bait and switch on us by adopting a sales tax and promising to get rid of the income tax, but then conveniently deciding that they want both sources of money. That's certainly what happened in Europe, where governments added sales taxes on top of income taxes, a tragic development that helped finance the bloated welfare states that are harming economic performance in places like France and Germany. But if the 16th Amendment is repealed and replaced by language that unambiguously precludes direct taxes on income, then there's no longer any downside risk of going with the sales tax. But here's what makes the strategy so attractive. Even if sales tax advocates can't get 2/3 support in Congress for the amendment, or 3/4 of the states to ratify it, we still have a flat tax. So either way, the American people win and special interests lose. On that optimistic note, let's bring this to a close. I have 2 favors to ask. First, we want to know whether you prefer the flat tax or the sales tax. And we also want to know what you think about the proposal I just described. Send your thoughts to the email address on the screen. We realize this is not a scientific poll, but we want to get a sense of what activists want. Second, we always ask that you share these Center for Freedom and Prosperity videos with your friends and colleagues. This project has been much more successful than we thought possible, and we want to continue spreading the message, both in America and around the world. I'm Dan Mitchell. Thanks for giving us some of your time.